Hi, folks. I'm going to talk to you all today about the story model as it relates to remote work. Obviously, reading through the different models of human resources management, I did feel more drawn to John's story. And I think for a couple of different reasons. One, he really emphasizes human capability as one of the things that differentiate organizations. He places commitment over compliance. And I think what that really means and kind of what that boils down to is it's important, again, to get the right folks. And now I'm starting to think about Jim Collins, but to get the right folks, on the bus, to get them in the right seats, and to really have an organization that's committed, that's focused on the strategic goals, that's focused on the organization's mission, its values. And when you have the right people in the right seats, you can begin to trust them, and you can begin, and they're competent individuals. Um, you can begin to trust their work. You can begin to trust their decision making, which I think is critical, especially when you're not, in front of those individuals on a day-to-day basis. And, really with COVID, you know, becoming a thing in 2020 in the last couple of years, and, many organizations are still relying on remote work. Many industries and many organizations have relied on remote work for years. So in some ways, of course, remote work isn't anything new, but it has been new to certain organizations um, with the impact of COVID. And so thinking through again with Story, he really emphasizes beliefs, strategic qualities, role of the line manager, as well as key levers. And, thinking through what that means for organizations, particularly again, as you think about remote work, it's being able to place that trust. It's being able to realize that one of the most important factors of an organization and their success is going to be the individual. And so, with that being said, there's a lot of things still to consider when being the individual that is working remotely, and being the manager that's responsible for making sure the goals are complete, making sure that the organization is moving forward in ways that are productive, in ways that serve the mission of the organization. Um, it's not just the director of human resources or the human resources office that's responsible for HRM. It's got to be the folks that serve in managerial roles, supervisory roles, and I think too, again, even being in a role where you report up, sometimes that might mean managing up, and ensuring that you're doing what you need to do as an employee to earn the trust of your supervisor, and that the expectations are clear. Kind of jumping back over to HRM, I think it's particularly related to remote work. Expectations are so important. Communication is critical. Again, when you're not going to be in front of that individual on a day-to-day basis. And so, I think having the right folks on the bus, I think creating clarity, um, and then at times I think you've got to over communicate clarity, um, because you gotta make sure that what you're doing, and what your team is working on is serving the mission, it's serving the goals of the organization, and at any point clarity um, doesn't seem to add up, doesn't seem to make sense, then we're losing really important time to complete the goals of the organization, no matter what the industry is and what the work is. I think about Brene Brown too, related to John's story, that this area on commitment, this area on human capability. Brene Brown wrote the book Gifts of Imperfection, and realizing that again, as humans, we're not going to be perfect. We shouldn't be striving for perfection, but we should be committed to ourselves. We should be committed to training and development. We should be committed to building our organizations in a way that, again, serves the mission. And so, I spent some time, reading about John's story. I spent some time jumping over to Patrick Lencioni. Um, he's got a book called The Advantage, and he talks about a number of different core principles that I thought really were related to organizational health, but certainly as it fits into this idea of remote learning or remote work. Um, and again, that's building a team. It's creating clarity. It's over communicating clarity at times, and it's reinforcing clarity. So he places great emphasis on this concept of clarity so that teams are on the same page, that communication is clear, and that there's a number of different check-ins. Um, I then jumped over to HBR. I love Harvard Business Review. There's a number of different, obviously over the last couple of years, there's a lot of information on virtual teams. And I think there's a lot of work that has to be done in order for a team that's virtual, to be on the same page, to be cohesive, and again, to serve the mission in a way that moves the organization forward. Um, and so there's a lot there. I think even with HRM, um, there's going to be some limitations. Um, the assumption would be that there could be lack of access, a lack of information. Um, there could be a lack of supervision, if not, carefully thought through as far as what that's going to look like on a team. But again, I think going back to John's story, um, we're talking about commitment over compliance, and so that's going to mean that you've got the right folks and that you can trust them because one, they've earned the ability to be trusted, through their performance. Um, they've shown that they can um, do things in a way that works towards the mission. So yeah, I think in wrapping up, there's still a lot to consider as it relates to remote work. But for me, I think the John story model best fits the type of leadership that I like to work for, that I like to offer to teams, and that's I'm going to trust you. You're going to build that trust. We're going to do it together, but um, that you're going to have what you need to be successful, and that as a manager or as a leader, I'm going to be there to offer the tools that you may need. I'm going to try to remove barriers, however I need to do that, so that you have what you need to be successful. And certainly that's applicable to remote work when you're not going to be in person. I think, as a manager too, as a leader, there's always that fear of, social interaction or isolation. And so that's one of those things too that must be thought about, so that we can keep morale high, and that we can keep our team members feeling cohesive and feeling like their work matters. And if we can do that, then I think we can move our organizations forward. Thank you.